Barbados, a country of scenic beauty and natural charm, no bigger than the Isle of Wight. Yet, from its settlement in 1627 up to its national independence in 1966, it has produced a population density of nearly 1,500 to the square mile, living on so few acres and exploiting so few resources. In spite of these disadvantages, the young nation has developed an economy and a standard of living that rank among the highest in the Commonwealth Caribbean countries. This little isle, set in a silver sea at the hub of the world's communications, merits its popularity as the sanatorium of the West and as a tourist resort of great importance. Indeed, tourism is a major growth-generating sector of the economy, contributing in 1967 about $35 million to the general revenue. In that same period, visitors to Barbados exceeded 91,000, and of these, more than 50% came from the United States of America and Canada. Today, Barbadians are proud to welcome to their shores on a state visit two most distinguished visitors, the Governor-General of Canada, the Right Honourable Roland Michener, and Mrs. Michener. Friday, the 21st of February, 1969. The setting is Sewell International Airport. The occasion is one of a red carpet welcome for Canada's Governor-General and Mrs. Michener. And here to receive their excellencies are the Governor-General of Barbados, Sir Winston Scott, and Lady Scott, the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Errol Walton Barrow and Mrs. Barrow, the High Commissioners and diplomats of Commonwealth countries, and the United States of America, France, and the Republic of China. The Governor-General of Canada has been described as a man of imperturbable good nature, tact, and a good supply of political wisdom. Barbadians were soon to discover for themselves the aptness of the description. This visit to Barbados is but the third leg of a series of state visits to 4 Commonwealth Caribbean nations: Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago. Canada, and especially its maritime provinces, can claim good relations with the West Indies for nearly 200 years. Today, through these worthy ambassadors, these relationships are developed and cemented. Mrs. Michener, in her own right a lady of high academic attainment, a teacher and a musician, supports her husband in every phase of his responsibility, not only in his onerous duties in trying to bind together a bilingual country into one larger political unit, but also in fostering a common understanding and a spirit of interdependence between the developed Commonwealth countries and their less fortunate brothers of the Commonwealth Caribbean. The massed bands of the Royal Barbados Police Force and the Barbados Regiment, on parade in honor of Their Excellencies' visit, recall the part they played at Expo 67 in Montreal, Canada, 2 years ago, and the popularity won by the mounted troop of the force in the World Horse Spectacular on that memorable occasion. At Government House, the home of Barbados governors since 1702, when it was rented from a family of Quakers, the distinguished guests will reside. Government House, which was once the official residence of colonial governors, is now the residence of the Governor-General of Barbados. On the day after their arrival, the Right Honourable Roland Michener and Mrs. Michener toured the Northern District, making stops at Farley Hill, Greenland, and Warren's Sugar Factory. The Farley Hill National Park, one of the shooting locations for the motion picture Island in the Sun, was opened by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II during her visit to Barbados. Their Excellencies are received by the Minister of Agriculture and the Chief Agricultural Officer. Over the years, Canada has shown an abiding interest in the development of the West Indies. Visitors from the great North American Dominion are attracted to the islands of the Caribbean in ever-increasing numbers as tourists and immigrants. The Government of Canada has made available to the Barbados government interest-free loans of $250,000 to obtain cattle and equipment from Canada to improve the local dairy industry, one of the many ways in which Canada continues to show interest in Barbados. The Scotland District, the hilly coastal area of the northeast of the island, in some ways resembles parts of Scotland. In many respects, the Barbados landscape, consisting of trim green cane fields, marked out by tall casuarinas and dotted with red cottage roofs, is reminiscent of the English countryside. A stone's throw from Farley Hill National Park is Greenland Plantation in the parish of St. Andrew. The Governor-General shows special interest in the work of the Agricultural Development Corporation at Greenland, where he inspects a herd of Frisian cattle bought by the Barbados government from Canada to supplement the local dairy industry. The importation of cattle such as these by the Central Livestock Farm has been a boon to the small dairyman. A word of encouragement and congratulations to all who worked on the project. The party leaves Greenland in brilliant sunshine, but at Warren's, sunshades are exchanged for umbrellas. Although less than 9% of Canada's labour force are employed in agriculture, it is still the country's most important industry. On arrival at Warren's sugar factory, Their Excellencies meet and talk with the workers. Barbados exports about 180,000 tons of sugar annually, along with byproducts, molasses and rum, accounting for about 80% of the total domestic exports. In the early days of the sugar industry in Barbados, there were as many as 100 factories milling sugar and syrup. These mills were mostly powered by wind or animals. Today, there are 18 factories manufacturing sugar and 4 making syrup, with considerably greater efficiency and output. In Canada, syrup is extracted from the sap of the maple, but compared with the cane sugar, this is an expensive process. And now for a taste of the finished product, and the raw material as well. Barbados was the first place in the world to discover that sugarcane could be grown from seed. Before this, sugarcane multiplied vegetatively, but with the discovery came the possibility of developing new strains by crossing. The next day, Sunday, the Missioners attend the Girl Guides Thinking Day service in Queen's Park. This service marks the end of a year's celebrations and afford the Canadian Governor-General the opportunity to meet and address a large section of the nation's youth. The annual Thinking Day service is a time for these young people to reflect on how best they can live up to their promises. His Excellency urges them to use this part of their lives to the best advantage, to learn to dedicate themselves, and to set standards. He says that in Canada, Barbados, and other countries of the world, there is a large and growing need for young people who understood order and discipline, and who have grown up with the training, ability, and courage to meet the challenges of a complicated technological society. Thinking Day and Thanksgiving Day, and a big thank you to some friends of the movement. Trafalgar Square, the old Eggington's Green, and the meeting place of the first House of Assembly of Barbados. Across the square, in the Senate chamber, the upper and lower houses meet in joint session. Their Excellencies are received by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Assembly and escorted to the dais of the chamber. The Senate replaced the Legislative Council in May 1964 as the upper house of the legislature. There are 21 nominated members, 12 of whom are appointed by the Governor-General on the advice of the Prime Minister, 2 by the Governor-General on the advice of the opposition, and the remaining 7 by the Governor-General, acting in his discretion. The House of Assembly, the lower house, consists of 24 members elected under a system of adult suffrage.
Your Excellency, it is indeed
the President of the Senate, Sir Stanley Robinson, delivers his address of welcome.
Thank you to address a joint session of the Parliament of Barbados.
This is followed by another address by the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Sir Theodore Branca. In the course of his address, the Speaker expresses the gratitude of the Government of Barbados to the people of Canada for the many gestures of goodwill and tangible help, particularly in the fields of education, agriculture, and public service training. The Governor-General of Canada thanks the two houses and in his address speaks of Canada's intention to expand their development assistance, both in extent and amount, until it reaches the 1% of the gross national product recommended by the United Nations. He refers particularly to the possibilities of technical assistance of the kind Canada was qualified to give, such as in the field of agriculture and industry.
The kind which we are qualified to give, for example, in the field of agriculture and industry. I was delighted to find some evidence of progress in this direction. On Saturday, I saw at Greenland Plantation a herd of Holstein Friesian cows, some of which were recent immigrants from Canada, and others, their progeny, were first-generation Barbadians.
This is the first occasion since independence in 1966 that the two houses have been accorded the honor of a head of state addressing them. Canada and the Commonwealth nations of the Caribbean are the only countries in the New World that have a monarchical form of government. It is part of the Governor-General's duty to preserve and enhance the prestige of the Crown and strengthen ties that bind these nations together. With the adoption of the British North America Act of 1867, Canada's system of government consists of one Parliament of Canada. Queen Elizabeth II is Queen of Canada and head of the Canadian state. The Queen's representative is the Governor-General. The upper house in Canada, as in Barbados, is called the Senate. Representatives, elected by the people, form the House of Commons. The Governor-General inspects a section of Barbados industrial development on his tour of two companies at Newton Industrial Park. Over one-half of Canada's imports are fully manufactured goods, while raw materials, food products, and semi-manufactured goods represent about 80% of exports. The party, headed by the Prime Minister, make their first stop at Wills Pharmaceuticals. In recent years, there has been an active effort to diversify the economy of Barbados, not only in the field of agriculture, but in light industries and manufactured goods. At the end of a tour of West Indies hats and handbags, the Governor-General and Mrs. Michener accept a pair of bookends made of local coral from the Barbados Development Board. Here at Scientific International, modular units are assembled for various electronic equipment and computers. New skills have been acquired by Barbadians working here. These men and women form part of a labor force that is bringing to Barbados an industrial development aimed at diversifying the economy. Paragon in Christchurch is the headquarters of the High Altitude Research Project, known as HARP. Canadian and American scientists pioneered work in this project with its unique method of probing the atmosphere for scientific data using a naval 16-inch gun. Techniques have reached the stage where the High Altitude Research Project is planning a space shot in the near future. The visit to the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies is an occasion when the good sense and tact of the Canadian Governor-General is put to the test. Following the recent student riots at St. George Williams University in Montreal, Canada, where a number of West Indians are involved, the students of the Barbados campus greet His Excellency with placards expressing sympathy and solidarity with the students at St. George Williams University. The Governor-General regards the demonstrators as he would any guard of honor, inspects them, and holds aloft one of the placards reading, "Stop Racism." In the art lecture room, the president of the Guild of Undergraduates declares the day Solidarity Day and expresses concern for his brothers to receive a fair trial in the land where man and his world was the theme of Expo 67, and expresses the hope that Canadian universities will not allow the incident to prejudice them in their dealings with West Indians. The Governor-General, in his reply, speaks of the great pleasure it gives him and his wife to find themselves again in the stimulating atmosphere of a university campus, and to find that students of today, as in his day, had not completely accepted everything as the best of all possible worlds, and that there are still things to be corrected. He says that if people are not prepared to seek out and correct injustices or the malfunction of our social system, whether in the university or elsewhere, then there is little hope for progress. Overlooking the Cave Hill campus, these 6 prototype houses form part of the pilot scheme of the Urban Development Corporation. This corporation, established by Act of Parliament in 1965, will, with the help of mortgage finance companies, provide housing for middle-income groups. This area forms part of the master plan for the Cave Hill area, with provision for about 3,000 houses, half of which will be constructed on government lands. The Bel Airs Research Institute of McGill University was established in 1954 to provide a research facility for the study of the tropics and to play its part in the scientific, economic and cultural development of Barbados and the West Indies. The main activities of the Institute have so far been directed primarily towards marine sciences. The Institute operates a number of small boats as well as a research vessel equipped to carry out a wide range of hydrographic and biological work in coastal waters. Before leaving Barbados, Mr. and Mrs. Michener plant a jacaranda in the grounds of Government House, a token of friendship between the two countries, a friendship that, in the years to come, promises to grow and flourish. Governor-General Sir Winston Scott, on behalf of the people of Barbados, extends to their excellencies an invitation to come in the evening or come in the morning, come when you're looked for or come without warning. Au revoir.